Carol Burnett made her Broadway musical debut 40 years ago in Once Upon a Mattress. After that, she became a beloved member of most American households with the success of her Emmy-winning TV show. Well, now she's back on the Broadway stage in a musical review of composer Stephen Sondheim's work called Putting It Together.
Listen, everybody, look, I don't know what you're waiting for. A wedding? What's a wedding? It's a prehistoric ritual where everybody promises fidelity forever, which is maybe the most horrifying word I've ever heard, which is followed by a honeymoon where suddenly he'll realize he's saddled with a nut and want to kill me, which he should. Thanks a bunch, but I'm not getting married. Go have lunch, because I'm not getting married. You've been grand, but I'm not getting married. Don't just stand there, I'm not getting married. And don't tell Paul, but I'm not getting married today. Go, can't you go? Why is nobody listening? Goodbye, go and cry at another person's wake. If you're quick for a kick, you could pick up a christening. But please, on my knees, there's a human life at stake.
Carol Burnett, good morning. Lots of singing, a little squeaking there. I was just saying.
A little squeaky. It just comes out naturally that way.
How do you do that with that sort of funny little yodel thing that you do in the middle of songs?
Well, I think it just came, you know, when I was a kid and did the Tarzan yell, you know, so it's just in there.
Are you having fun doing this show?
Yes, I am. Of course, it's Stephen Sondheim is so fabulous. You know, when you talk about it as a review, the way it's spelled is R-E-V-I-E-W.
Right.
Which is like reviewing his work. There's a great body of work, and this isn't everything, but there's quite a bit in there.
And for people who haven't seen it, and there are probably many out there right now,
right.
It's basically taking some of a lot of his great songs from a number of shows,
Absolutely,
and then they're woven together with a storyline.
With a kind of a little thin plot line. I call it, actually, in my mind, it's a musical Virginia Woolf.
Right. Because there is a lot of angst going on stage during these songs, and we were talking during the commercial break.
And that's not just the songs, it's us.
Right.
Just trying to remember those lyrics.
You know, the songs to me are, I mean, they're wonderful. They're so clever and witty and obviously fun to listen to because there's so much there. I know they're pretty hard to master, though, aren't they?
Yes, I think that was probably the hardest thing I ever had to do was to learn this piece.
And I'm Not Getting Married, you said, was not the hardest.
That was not the most difficult. The most difficult is one that George Hearn and I do called Country House. It's a conversation musically that the husband and wife are having where they're arguing and deciding what to do, and it overlaps, and it was a tough one to learn. But once you get them, they're in there. Forever.
And they're somewhat difficult on an emotional level too, because some of them are very depressing because they're about love not enduring, about disillusionment and ennui, and people who have everything but they're miserable.
Wonderful songs are about that, you know, that weren't just written by Stephen Sondheim. It's just that these really get into it.
I mean, they're almost brutal that way. I mean, I like sort of like I'm as corny as Kansas and I like those kinds of songs.
It's easy to remember.
And listening to these, you're like, oh my God, let's go home.
You have to pay attention. You really have to pay attention because every one of his songs, I've said this before, every one of his songs is a three-act play. They have the beginning, the middle, the end, the third act, and then there's a punch at the end of it that sometimes you don't expect. So you really have to pay attention.
An example of that is, could I leave you?
Could I leave you? You know, could I leave you? Yes. Will I leave you? And you wonder where she's going with that. Yes. Ooh.
You and George Hearn play the older couple who's sort of, they're sick of each other.
Yeah, yeah.
And then there's a younger couple.
Yes, John Barrowman and Ruthie Henschel.
And they're wonderful.
And Bronson Pinchot is kind of the observer for the evening, you know, so he's our Puck.
What do you think took you so long to get back on Broadway in a musical? I know, of course, you were in Moon Over Buffalo a few years back.
Yeah.
But this is your first musical in 40 years.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, my God. I better go back to bed. Well, it's Stephen Sondheim. Stephen Sondheim. And, you know, I don't think I would want to come back and do something new or go from scratch, although this is, in a way, for me. But it's a challenge. It's an acting piece, not just musical, you know.
And to be totally superficial, I have to say, you have the best legs in the business. On stage, I was thinking,
oh, well, thank you.
Wow, She has
I'm glad I
incredible
shaved this
gams
morning.
and wore a short skirt and showing them off. And anyway, how do you stay in such great shape?
Thank you. I don't know.
Do you exercise?
The legs are the last thing to go, I guess.
Do you exercise regularly?
Only on stage, only when I'm doing.
Really?
Which is great because I'll eat dinner early,
Uh-huh.
and then you work it off on stage, and then I don't eat anything afterwards, so that helps.
Oh, you must have good genes. Yeah. Well, it's great to see you're wonderful
Thanks,
in the
Katie.
show and so funny as always.
It's great to see you.
Nice to see you. Bye, Carol.
Thanks.
Carol Burnett. And Putting It Together opens here in New York on November 21st. I was lucky to see it in previews on Saturday night. And we'll be back with more of Today right after this.